Welcome to Getting Personal, a monthly podcast diving deep into the stories of the heartbeat of HR. Brought to you by Compt, a global lifestyle benefits platform where companies empower employees with benefits and rewards they'll use and appreciate, whoever and wherever they are in life. Joining me today is Rachel Ann, an educator, coach, and founder of the Menopause Education Center. She's building what she calls a menopause movement, one that challenges how we think about hormonal health in our relationships, our careers, and our culture. Welcome, Rachel Ann.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for having me as a repeat. I know that our first meeting, my technology was having a hot flash of its own. But just like I teach women how to move through that, we've moved through it. And here we are to talk about my favorite subject.
I love that. Yes, we absolutely have to give ourselves grace, whether it is something that is happening with the internet or hormonally happening. So, today we are going to talk about menopause as something that shows up in our bodies, our work, our relationships. But before we go there, I wanted to ask, and I feel like it's appropriate for this conversation, what does your nervous system need today?
Today and along with, every day, it's being grounded because with what's happening in the world and now that information flows so fast, it's like we are living the lives of the billions of people that we share this planet with. And some of those lives right now are in chaos and are in strife. And anyone who's connected to the world and who's aware, and who has any kind of feelings is feeling. So I think it's important to stay grounded. And while, we all want to fix everything that's going wrong in the world, and we wish we could wave a magic wand for peace and wave a magic wand for all these things that many of us know are wrong, we have to stay focused on what can we do in our lives that affect the people that are around us on a daily basis. So for me, my nervous system has to not get caught up in wanting to fix the world and being able to be purposeful in the things that I can fix, which is the lives of millions of women that are struggling in their marriages and their careers. That I can do something about. I can't fix world politics. I can't reopen the Gulf. I can't fix gas prices. Those things are not. So I think my nervous system likes to pay attention to what actually can I do today to leave the highest and best impact on the world that I live in.
I imagine that approaching things that way also just keeps you in a better place of wellness, well being for yourself, because everything that is going on permeates what we're doing in our personal lives, in our work lives, and then those things also intersect. So it's kind of tough to balance all of that, right?
It is. It's energetically and it's very triggering, when you see what's happening. And if you look at also some of the things that are happening in relation to specifically how it focuses on women. So as part of Women's History Month, there's a lot of focus on women and history of women, and not just in America. It's International Women's Day was a couple days ago. Like, it's women everywhere. And I think that also ties in to some of the politics of what's happening now, because there comes a component of suppression of women, of their education, of their rights, of their autonomy, of their own body. And that also brings us back into talking about hormones, because if you think about some of these secular, you think about religion, you think about some of these cultures where women are even afraid to talk about their periods. Could you imagine going through menopause and not being able to even ask your doctor for something to physically calm your systems because it's not allowed for your. So we talk a lot about, also there's a lot of religious implications that women all over the world are subject to and what they can do with their bodies. It's really fascinating. But again, it could create a lot of anxiety,
Right.
because then you're thinking about, oh my God, how do we help these women? How do we help them go to college? How do we help them be able to leave abusive relationships? And how do we help them deal with their body chemistry, just their biology? So it brings in all of those things. So when I think about that and I look at the plight of women in Iran and I look at the plight of women all over the world, it's like, what plight do you pick? Do you pick the plight for no child marriages? Do you pick the plight for women being able to have all the choices in their life available to them? Do you pick education? Do you pick, like, how do we do it all? So in
Yeah.
order to not get overwhelmed by how do you fix it all, you try to focus down, my nervous system, and what can I fix? What can I do to leave this world a better place in this
Well,
moment?
when we talk about what can you do, in the introduction, I even mentioned you're working on building this menopause movement. A movement is a big thing for a what can you do. So tell me about what that means. And then we'll talk about how this has gone from more of a personal story for you to a work impact, a cultural thing.
Yeah, for sure. So for me, this started about 10 years ago when I started my own journey into aging into the next phase of my life in my 40s. And I had no idea what was happening. I had never really heard of menopause. I might have heard of hot flashes, and that was about it. And thought nothing of it in my 30s, thought nothing of it in my 40s until some things told me that I should start thinking about some things. And so, in my own journey of going to my doctor and doing research and learning more about what was about to happen to me as a biological certainty, it was terrifying.
Right.
The lack of information was terrifying. The lack of awareness that I had in my own body was terrifying. The lack of me even understanding that I needed testosterone to function, because in my mind, that was the hormone that puts hair on your chest. So, me being in my 40s and being so ill informed about my own body as a woman, and being so ill informed by my own doctor, by my own mother, by my grandmother, by like every woman I had ever met, I was like, why has no one told me what is happening?
Yep.
So then when I went down my own rabbit hole for research, that even made it worse because
Right.
all the research was either so academic that I couldn't understand it because I didn't go to medical school, or it was basically so traumatizing, like your vagina is never going to work again, your sex life is over, your brain is never going to function again, so you're never going to be at the top of your game. It was like every statistic: highest divorce rate during a woman's menopausal years, highest suicide rate for women during a woman's menopausal years. Like every statistic was just like worse and worse and worse. And so I was like, why is no one fixing this? I was like, why is no one doing anything about this? Why are there no courses for women that are written in a language that leaves you feeling empowered and inspired instead of terrified? Why are doctors not talking about it? Why are companies not paying attention to the fact that they're losing women that have busted their butts for decades to climb to the top of the corporate ladder? Like, why is no one paying attention? So I'm like, you know what?
Hmm.
I'm going to pay attention. And so I started the Menopause Education Center so no woman would have to go through what I was going through. And so we created courses and curated content and worked with medical experts and authors and coaches and therapists to really build this entire ecosystem so a woman could go to her doctor and demand healthcare and go to her doctor and advocate for herself instead of just being brushed off of you're getting old or it's just depression. Here's an antidepressant. No, 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 no. So teaching women about their bodies, that empowerment that I wish someone would have been there to teach me would have
Yeah.
changed my whole life. I could have been proactive about my health instead of reactive. So we exist to enable women to be proactive about their health and for husbands and partners in a marriage to understand what's happening to the woman in their lives and for companies to be like, oh, we have a large population of females that could or could not be bringing these symptoms to work. What does that look like for them? Oh, we have a large population of our male executives that are going home to relationships where their wives or girlfriends or partners could be going through this biological change. What does that look like for them? So even just starting the conversation 10 years ago, no one else was doing this. No one was talking about menopause. Oprah Winfrey wasn't talking about menopause. Celebrities weren't coming out with vibrators and gels, and there weren't
Hmm.
a million companies talking about it. So when it first started, people thought I was crazy. They're like, what? No one wanted to talk to me. I would word the word menopause, and even women would shut down because they don't want to face their own bias or their own aging. So for the first five
Hmm.
years, we were like, groundbreaking, and we were the only ones doing what we were trying to do with this education and empowerment. And obviously in the last 5 years, which has been amazing, everything has changed. Now
Yeah.
there's companies that are doing nothing but menopause that are raising hundreds of millions of dollars. Femtech is a booming industry. Celebrities are talking about menopause, and there's millions of products now, which is a whole nother problem because everybody jumped on the bandwagon of now let's make a product because women are paying attention.
Yep.
So a lot of the attention put on menopause in the last few years, studies, academic, it's now out in the open. So it's a really incredible time to be in the space because women are like, no, we're not going to suffer in silence anymore. We're going to advocate for ourselves. We're going to demand change in the workplace. We're going to demand change in our own lives and bodies and what's available to us for support. So again, when I started, people thought I was nuts. And it's been nice to see that I wasn't nuts.
I
Too
totally get
early.
that.
Too
Yes.
early.
Great ideas are often early. You know, you had mentioned as part of your journey the online searching that happens that is
Ugh.
usually reactive, you know, when all of a sudden something weird is happening with your body. So for some reason you go, let me just Google it real quick. Let me see what people on Reddit are talking about. Maybe someone else is experiencing this. And you usually do it when you're having the hot flash at 3 a.m. So you're not like fully sane. You're in that brain fog of the middle of the night. Um, was it in that moment that you decided, I'm going to start a company around this? Or was it a different moment of clarity where you were having a conversation with someone, or it was like driving home from a doctor's appointment? Just like take me to that moment, because it was a really big decision on your part to go in this direction.
Yeah, so it was a lot of moments cumulative. It was
Yeah.
like, the doctor visit where they're like, you're just getting older here. We could look at your blood tests. It was the embarrassment that I felt that the more I educated myself, how stupid I felt. Like, I didn't even know that I had 5 hormones. Like, what is follicle stimulating hormone? I've never heard of that in my life. I have an endocrine system. I think I have heard of the endocrine system, and unless you have other medical things, you don't think about your thyroid. You don't think about your adrenals. You just go through your life. And I've never been, I don't have any children. So fertility was not something that was even on my radar because
Mm-hmm.
typically women are more educated about their bodies because they go through that fertility phase. So they learn about
Sure.
their hormones and everything. But if you're a woman who's not at a child or you're not interested in fertility or whatever hasn't been on your radar, you often go into your 40s or 50s like having no clue about what's happening in your body because doctors don't talk about it. So it was a
Yeah.
culmination of all of these different experiences, my own fear, my own Googling, my own, well, this doctor says one thing, this doctor says another, the AMA says another, the National Institutes of Health says another. This is making my life worse. But the statistic that really broke my heart was the stories of women who took their own lives.
Mm.
And in the rabbit hole of my research, there was a ton of stories of women, and I'm going to summarize it for you, but this is what it looks like. A woman is in her 40s, whatever, is depressed. She goes to her doctor, and keep in mind, so she knows nothing about menopause or perimenopause. It's not even on her radar. The word isn't even in her ecosystem. She goes to the doctor. Doctor, I'm depressed. What's happening? Doctor isn't educated or trained in perimenopause and menopause because this is a huge problem in the medical community. There's like one chapter on it in medical school. So
Mm-hmm.
like women after fertility are kind of like forgotten. But so the doctor puts a woman on an antidepressant, doesn't test anything else, doesn't test her hormones, doesn't test her adrenals, doesn't test her thyroid, just typically slaps that prescription down for some kind of SSRI. Well, if there's other things going on in the body, that antidepressant can't fix the depression because what's causing the depression is still existing in the body. And so
Right.
now these women are on these antidepressants for a year and they're still feeling broken. But now they feel doubly broken because now they're like, "Oh my God, I'm on antidepressants. I am still depressed. I guess nothing's going to fix me and I don't want to live like this and I'm out." And so when I
Yeah.
was reading these stories of suicide, I was like, holy fuck. Like, if this woman would have just known to say to her doctor, no, before you put me on an antidepressant, test my hormones, test my adrenals, see what's going on in my body, who knows if we could have saved a life. And
Yeah.
it was it was just awful to think that a woman felt so fearful and so unempowered. And I was like, if I can fix that, if I can empower one woman to ask one more question, one woman to question her doctor and find a new doctor or do something, who knows if we could have saved a life. And
Yeah.
then that led me into, okay, well, if women are taking their lives, then you read the horror stories about women who were leaving their careers. And
Right.
that made me think back to all my friends who skipped the parties in college because they were so focused on their careers and who gave up time with their families for 20 years so they could climb the corporate ladder and put up with whatever you needed to as a woman. Then finally they're at the top of the corporate ladder, and the next thing you know, their hormones go insane. They don't know what to do. The company doesn't know what to do, so they just quit their jobs. So I was like, "Oh my God, women are quitting their lives, quitting their jobs, losing their marriages." I'm like, "This is crazy." So all of those moments led
Yeah.
to, but the one that really hit home was, women feeling like they were so broken
Yeah.
that anything was better than being alive. And that fed into all of it, that the information was not presented in a way that was powerful and empowering. So we fixed that with our courses, all of our courses. And you saw the tone of our website.
Mm-hmm.
They're written for today's modern woman. They
Yeah.
are vetted, they are curated, they are easy to understand so that when you go to your doctor, you have a tool to not just be steamrolled by the doctor or the 10 minutes you're going to get with your doctor. So we empower women to be fearless in their lives. And when you can do that, every part of their life benefits from that empowerment, that a woman feels confident in her life and in her future.
Yeah. Gosh, there's so much in there that is so powerful and upsetting. And one thing that I kept coming back to was that so much of the onus is on the woman to try to figure out, like, what's wrong with me? How do I get more information? Why doesn't anyone want to listen to me? What can I even believe? And you have to constantly advocate for yourself in the healthcare industry, in your personal life and relationships, in work. And uh, well, that's bullshit, I guess, is what I'm coming to. Ridiculous.
Yeah,
So,
and you're so lucky to learn it now,
yeah.
earlier in your life than in your 40s or 50s, because now you can carry that fuck this. You can carry that this is bullshit with you longer in your life. So it will change your life. And I'm so excited for young women because they will not go through with perimenopause and menopause what their mothers or what my generation went through. Because
Yep.
doctors now are being forced to learn more. Women are speaking up and questioning things and learning more about their bodies and coming into that natural empowerment on their own. So you're so lucky. I wish that it was like,
Thanks.
because a lot of women will say, "Where were you when I was in menopause?" And I was like, I was probably like 20. So I didn't even know that I was going to have to deal with this. Right.
Right.
Um, but anyway, sorry, I interrupted your question. What were you going to ask? Where was that going?
No, I'm just thinking about we've talked about the like intersection of the physical symptoms and the nervous system and emotional and mental health symptoms that happen. Um, so there's a lot going on, but is there something that you think that people maybe underestimate the most about this part of the experience? And then that could be personally or at work, and then we'll dive into the work stuff later.
I think that we underestimate um, how well we know ourselves.
Hmm.
And I think that that's the biggest key because when we know that something is wrong, we feel it, whether that's just like our period was a little heavy, but we discount it. We're so quick to try to be strong as women that like we don't maybe notice the little details of like, oh, I haven't been sleeping well. Well, I haven't been sleeping well for months. Did I know that I wasn't sleeping well for a month, or did I just assume it was tiring? Or did I just assume I did too much partying that week with my friends? Or is it just extra stress? So I think the key thing to be aware of is yourself. Don't let anyone make you feel like you don't know yourself. If you don't feel right, then something is not right. You're not imagining it, you're not broken, but notice it. So I think the awareness of what's really happening, how am I feeling, how am I acting, how is the world, what's going on in here in my little voice, in my own little world that no one else sees. It's really important to tune into that and do it fearlessly and not to be afraid to advocate for yourself. So I think the one thing I underestimated was how accurate I was in knowing myself,
Hmm.
where I knew that something was not right when I knew, but I didn't take action because I didn't know it wasn't right. I just knew I didn't feel right, but I didn't realize, oh my God, my hormones, I didn't realize perimenopause could have started in my late 20s. I wasn't paying attention or keeping a diary of my sleep or my behavior or my periods or anything like that. So I think that's the one thing that I underestimated was my own intuition about my body.
Yeah. What do you think happens when people try to power through it, or what are some of the stories that people have shared with you, or maybe even resources that you're sharing on your website in regards to that?
So powering through it for women is like a big deal. We could do a whole
It's what we're
podcast
always
about
told
just
to
how
do.
we've been made to feel like we're supposed to power through. You try
Yeah.
to tell a man to power through period cramps. I would love to see that. There's actually a vest. Someone
Yeah.
made a vest
I
that a
saw
man
that.
put on that mimics period cramps, and you
Yeah.
watch these men like, oh, I had no idea.
Yeah.
So
They're at
the
like a
whole
level
power,
3 and they're crying. You're
yeah,
like,
yeah.
okay.
Okay. The whole power through thing is such bullshit, that I don't even, I can't even, it just wells up in me. Like, come on, like, really? Like, how did we even do that? And, it's not just men that did it to women, it's women that did it to women. It's women that instead of supporting your sister and lifting her up, you were like, well, get it together, girl. You need to
Yeah.
power through it. So we have taught each other as women that it's not that being aware is a weakness. Being aware of what's happening in your body is not a weakness. Being aware and being able to go to someone and say, listen, doctor, I need help. This is what I'm feeling. No, I don't like your answer. Get me a different answer. No, I'm going to go see another doctor because I don't think you're listening to me. Like, being so empowered to feel that way is really, 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 really important.
Yeah.
Um, Sorry, I get sidetracked. I could talk about this in so many different ways. I'm like thinking of like my
I
brain, like,
know.
where do I go with that answer? Um, but the power through it thing is such a, you know what you do when you power through it? That's when you ask questions. You don't power through it. You power through it till you get a solution that makes you feel better, that makes you feel like yourself again, that's protecting your vitality and all the things that are important to you in your life.
Yeah. I love that. You had mentioned earlier that it also shows up in the way that we climb the corporate ladder and spend so much time focused on work and powering through it for work, and then quit or figure out some other alternative. How have you seen it show up? How have you seen menopause show up at work? Perimenopause, menopause, any stage of this really show up at work. Um, and then how people are experiencing it versus how companies are responding to it, because there's definitely a disconnect there.
Oh, there's a huge disconnect. And it's still, even with all the articles and all the academic studies and all of the business case studies that have been coming out there. So, a couple years ago, the Mayo Clinic came out with their study where they actually put a price tag on menopause. And everybody can research it. If you want to go to Google, for all of you listening at home, you can Google cost of menopause in the United States and it'll show you $26.6 billion.
Oh my
Yes,
God.
billion with a B. And they go through and so that number was staggering for people to see. Some people thought it
Yeah.
was a typo. Maybe they meant million. No, they meant billion. And even if they meant million, $26.6 million. And then they broke it down into what's really happening inside of a company. And between absenteeism,
Mm-hmm.
presenteeism, hiring and retraining, and all of these different things, menopause is costing companies hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, in all sorts of different ways. And so they broke it down into tables of, if you have a woman who's at the top of her game and she's in your C suite and she's bringing a symptom to work where she's not at the top of her game, you're getting a 20% less productivity from her. If a woman is going through unmanaged menopause, she's taking not only all of her sick days, she's taking all sorts of extra sick days because she
Right.
doesn't have any resources to get her symptoms under control. You're seeing the same things that while it biologically happens to a woman, imagine if you're a man who's going home every day to a marriage or household that's falling apart, intimacy, menopause rage, all of these things. You're losing his productivity because he's coming to work from that place that's falling apart. So
Mm-hmm.
this really is an entire whole health of the family type of issue for companies because it affects everybody on your workforce. If a woman is going through symptoms and she's in a leadership role, I guarantee you she's leading differently because she's not asking herself the question, what's happening to me and how do I fix it? She's not feeling empowered to talk about it. She has no resources or training on how do I tell my team what's happening to me in a way that allows me to still be a leader, but to let them know, hey, wanted to let you know I'm going through some things. If I'm a little short, it's not directed at you. Give me a second. If you notice in a meeting that I'm getting a little irritated, I may take a moment and excuse myself. It's nothing that you've done. So we teach women how to exist in leadership roles and at work by teaching them how to have that conversation, by
Mm-hmm.
even making a company aware. When just a woman knowing that she is at a menopause friendly workplace changes everything. Because then if she feels like she's having a symptom or she's having a hot flash or she can't focus in the morning anymore, just being able to go to her boss and say, hey, listen, do you think we could move our morning meetings till 1 o'clock? I'm finding my brain is working better in the afternoon these days. Would that be possible? Just for someone to feel safe enough to go to their manager and say that saves careers. And then when you talk about the cost of hiring and retraining, just using standard data of 2 times someone's annual salary, you lose one of your senior women that are
Mm-hmm.
most likely in the 6-figure range. Look at the loss there.
Right.
Usually irreplaceable, because you're talking about someone who's been there decades, 10 years, 20 years. So to find that woman and replace her in the organization, why not just empower her? Why not just make a few little tweaks in the organization? Like maybe it's just even a woman feeling comfortable to call facilities and say, I need an extra fan. Or I need a refrigerator in my office. Could we do something like that so I could keep a cold pack? So just a
Mm-hmm.
woman feeling like she is supported is game changing. And now imagine the male employee going home to his wife saying, oh my God, my company has menopause resources. What a feel good what a feel good. I mean, the whole thing is feel good. And it's also good, like I said, for the bottom line. They've
Yeah.
estimated that, I believe the exact figure is $2,116 per person in menopause that companies lose. So if
Wow.
you even talk about 500 employees or 1,000 employees that fit this demographic, you're losing tens and tens of thousands of dollars. So this really makes sense for any company because you can make a case for corporate culture. You can make a case for corporate social responsibility because the health of your employees and the health of their families spill out into the entire world that they live in. Your CFO looks at the bottom line, runs the numbers, and sees that you're losing tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, for some companies, in the millions of dollars in direct and indirect healthcare costs related to menopause alone. Um, so the data doesn't lie, but there's this
Yeah.
bias somehow. But if people would get rid of their bias and just look at data, we'd get every single customer we pitch to say yes to having a compliance suite and menopause resources. So when someone says no, we're actually really surprised, because what you're really saying no to is, no, I don't care about my employees. No, I don't care about my profit margins. It's like, because if you cared about all of these things, there'd be no way for you to say no to this product.
Right. Yes, that makes a lot of sense to me. But yeah, I'm imagining the type of company that would say no. And I think there is probably, well, let me back up. Like, I don't want to stick my foot in my mouth. I'm thinking of what support would actually look like, what it would actually feel like in a company. And I imagine that there is some fear also on a woman's part, for example, coming into a company and saying, I need these resources, I need these things. Even if it is as simple as something you had mentioned was a refrigerator with an ice pack that you could just put on your neck in your office in the middle of the day. So I guess I'm trying to figure out my question here because I'm just going through these scenarios in my mind and trying to figure out uh the chicken or the egg of this,
Right.
like who
It's
moves
it's the
first.
right. It's the word that we all hate, which women hate, which is concessions.
Yeah.
It's women in corporate America not wanting to ask for concessions because that makes you weak. We've been
Mhm.
taught that if we ask for help or if we ask for an adjustment, that we are somehow weak. And that is so ingrained in us. And that is the stigma that if we could break that, being able to ask for help is the biggest sign of strength that there possibly can be. It's saying, I know myself, and this is what I need in order to get to the end result that I'm trying to get to. That is not a weakness. But we've been taught that, women, because we bleed, that's a concession. Oh, she's having that, even from the time we're young.
Mhm.
Boyfriends, oh, she's bleeding, so I'm going to give her a little minute, or she's got her period, she's a bit, or whatever. We're taught to feel bad that we're women. And
Yeah.
so that word concession sticks with a lot of women, especially when they're at director level and above. They don't want to go to their CEO and be like, hey, hey, dude, I need a refrigerator in my office.
Right.
Or, hey, I need to move our weekly shareholder meetings to the afternoon because I'm having some, or they're terrified in the middle of a board meeting if they all of a sudden are having a hot flash to say, excuse me 1 second, I'm going to go use the restroom. We're freaking terrified of being judged or made to feel less than. But guess what? That CEO, it shouldn't be on the director level employee. It should be on the CEO to go, I want to create a culture where every single person that works for me feels empowered and supported and appreciated. So if that means
Yeah.
that I have to have a policy for menopause that says, hey, if your biology rearing, if your biology is affecting you at work, we've got your back. Here's some of the things we've implemented at the company. If you're struggling with your meetings, go to your manager and ask for an adjustment of the time. No one is saying don't go to the meetings and don't do your work. We're simply saying, yes, you have the freedom here to thrive. And if you need to make some adjustments to make that happen, we are open to hearing you. And we are not going to judge you or make you feel like you're less than because of that. So I think it's on leaders to really pay attention to what kind of culture have you created. And then if you're a leader and you're afraid of this because you don't want to deal with your own bias, get
Hmm.
over it. You don't get to do that. You don't get to operate as a woman who's afraid to address her own aging and deny your employees resources and tools and empowerment because you don't want to deal with your own personal situation. So when women tell me no, that's actually at the root of it. It's not that because you can't argue with the bottom line. The numbers are real. Menopause programs save money, save careers, save absenteeism, increase productivity, preserve your top female talent. We know these things for fact. So when I talk to a woman who's like, no, we're not interested, I know what she's not interested in. It's not that her company is not interested, it's that she is not interested in having to come to terms with her own aging, her own bias, and her own biology.
Yeah, it's
So
holding the
female
mirror
leaders
up.
that hear this, don't do that. Don't do that.
When companies work with you and do so successfully, what does that look like?
I mean, it's amazing. It's an amazing thing to have a woman tell you that you saved her marriage. It's an amazing thing to have a woman tell you that you saved her sanity and you saved her health and you changed her life and gave her back her life. It's amazing to hear corporate companies say, we have never had so many people attend a Zoom for our ERG until we proposed this topic. We've never seen 400 people log into a meeting at the start and there still be close to 400 people at the end. We've never seen things like in the comment of thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you to the bosses that allowed the program, thank you to the company for being such a good place for me to work. Like the real world implications of what this does for women inside of their work world is unbelievable. The emails that I get, the thank you notes that we get, the feedback that we get from the companies, like I said, from the comments that are happening in the live meetings that we're doing, are unlike anything that they have ever seen, which furthermore supports the fact that women are so hungry for these resources and so hungry to be heard. And even the feedback from men who are so hungry to be like, what is happening to my wife? What is happening to the women that work for me? What is happening to the woman who I pick up my dry cleaning from? Like, no one pays attention to what this must look like for a man to be watching this happen to a woman. So women don't want to talk about it with themselves. Imagine how much they don't want to talk about it with men. So all of our resources are also for men as well. So there's a partner playbook written by men for men. There's
Hmm.
leadership and development training that's split into both for women and for men, because being a male leader, imagine you're leading a crew of all women who are going through menopause. You better know what's happening to the women that are in your workforce, how to talk to them, how to make them feel safe, what you can say, what you can't say, what you shouldn't say. Like, if you want to be a real leader, this is a topic you want to learn about because it's affecting your workforce. Menopausal women, by the way, are the fastest growing workplace demographic in America. So
That
the
makes sense.
most amount of, think about who are our teachers. Think about a tenured teacher. She's in her 40s and 50s teaching your children. Think about airlines. Think about everybody running cities. Think about all the back end staff that runs every city, all women administrators. Think about government. Think about schools. Think about hospitals. Think about everywhere that you have a high concentration of women in this age range who are dealing with biology as well as controlling so much of our daily lives. I don't know how anyone would not want to pay attention to this.
I
How
I
much time?
totally I agree.
How much time we got, Lauren?
I know. I'm like, what can of worms do I want to open? Because, oh my God, it is just, it's from every angle that it is like, it is both so rewarding and so impossible to be a woman in the workplace. Like,
I think about that too. Like I think about sometimes I'm like, why me? Why has this not existed 50 years ago? Why didn't
yeah,
this exist 5 years ago? Why does it not still exist today? Like this should not be so hard. This should be a one call close. Hey, you've got women that work for you. Hey, they're going through menopause. Hey, let's get you some resources. Let's get you some leadership and development training for your company. Let's get some classes and incredible tools for women and men and their home lives that you can throw into your learning management system. Let's really have sometimes I'll go to a company's website and I'll research their core values. And, they talk about all these values. And then I'll call them and I'll say, hey, in accordance with your corporate published values, this is a program you may want to add. And they'll be like, no, thank you. We don't need it. I'll be like, I just want to have like a spot where we could all go online and call out companies that toot all these corporate values that they don't follow and like call them out like bad actors.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
you say
Uh,
you care about this. We even started reaching out to some of the companies where they were named as the best places for women to work.
Mm.
There's
Mm-hmm.
like 5 of them on a list of 500 that have menopause policies. So if you're the best place for women to work, how do you even call yourself that without this being a like if I was a cult leader, a chief people officer, I would be thinking to myself, what does the career of a woman look like? We recruit this incredible young girl out of college. How do we nurture her all the way through her entire career and keep her forever? How do we care for
Yeah,
her? How do we give her opportunity? How do we help her grow? How do we help her sustain her career? How do we set her up for success? Not just initially, but think about like a young girl starting her career, got the job out of college, and the next thing you know, 25, 30 years later is the CEO. Like, what an incredible, powerful story for women. And unfortunately, biology is biology. We cannot outrun biology. And for
yeah,
some women, they'll have no menopause symptoms. They'll won't even notice. They'll just one day stop bleeding, have no more periods, yay. But for millions and millions and millions of women, and therefore millions and millions and millions of men that are their coworkers, husbands, partners, brothers, cousins, whatever, this is a big deal.
yeah.
Is a real big deal.
If someone listening is in the middle of this transition, and I imagine at least a handful of people listening are based on our audience, and they're feeling disconnected from themselves, they're feeling lost in any relationship they have, whether it's with work, with at home, with their healthcare provider, whatever it may be, what would you want them to know?
Well, I would want you to know that you're not alone and you're not broken. So those are the first two things. You're not alone and you're not broken. I would want you to go to look at some resources. Now, obviously, I love my resources the most. So I would say go to menopauseclasses.com and take the free course, or take the paid course, which has tools and deeper chapters and research and diaries and doctor questionnaires and hormone labs to request and why and what they mean and all of those things. There's also courses and a really incredible perimenopause ebook, which would have been super helpful for me to read in my 30s instead of writing it in my 50s. So there's a lot of great resources, whether you're young, to prep and be proactive about your health and your fertility and your moods and what's happening in your own body, um, all the way through. So I would say there's a lot of resources there. Now there's companies that do nothing but menopause telehealth, like MIDI and My Alloy and Winona. Those are also really good for a lot of people because they do nothing but perimenopause and menopause care. So there's a lot of different things, different from empowerment. They actually are doctors. So you're getting
Hmm.
right to the doctor. They put you on hormones, all of those things. I prefer, before I go to the doctor, I like to be super empowered and powerful and have data and diaries. So
Yeah.
I feel like we're like a first step, because before a woman even goes to her doctor, the more empowered you feel about the reason, the more productive that doctor can be with you, the more collaborative your care plan becomes. So training you to be your own best health advocate is really what's important to me. So then when you do go to your doctor eventually, you're the best partner for your doctor to care for you, instead of, just taking someone's word for it. No one should ever take anyone's word for it. I don't care what their degree says. Do your
Yeah.
own research, find your own tools, you know,
You know your body.
and yeah, and you're not crazy and you're not alone.
Yep.
So don't let anyone tell you either one of those things.
You know what I appreciate most about the work you're doing and the conversation that we've had is that it's not just about educating people, but we're challenging culture here, and what
Mm-hmm.
has been done and how it is truly not serving anyone. And we can fix it. And I think that this is brave work. So I want to thank you for doing it and thank you for chatting with me today.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. And I don't feel that brave. It's, to me, it feels like, now that I know what I know, how could I not, how could I not advocate for this in my life? Now that I know that women are taking their own lives, now that I know that women are losing their marriages, now that I know that women are losing their careers, how could I go on in my own life without trying to do something about that? So if I can save one woman's career, one woman's marriage, and one woman's life, then all of this work in my life is worth it.
Thanks for joining us on Getting Personal, brought to you by lifestyle benefits experts at Compt. Remember, you can always find more stories and helpful insights on our LinkedIn and blog.